Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Orin.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome back to the place where we explore the aspects of reality that attempt to hide in the dark. I'm your torch-bearing guide, Shayn, and with me today, I have an old friend of the show from way back on episode 3, Ben Balderson, here today for a free-for-all conversation discussing our views on alternative media, conspiracies, alchemy, and the destruction of plants through capitalism. But before we get into this fascinating episode today, just a handful of news and updates. First and foremost, I am trying to put together a Halloween special for you guys for Bizarre Encounters / Inquiries of Our Reality. So if any of you guys have any paranormal, cryptid, or extraterrestrial, or just outright bizarre experiences, you guys can call in and leave a message on our hotline, and I want to put those together and use them for the show. Hopefully, if I can at least get about 10 of them, that would be absolutely awesome. So hopefully at least 10 of you guys will call in to be able to put this Halloween special together. And if you guys want to do that, the number is 313-364-1551, and you guys can, of course, catch that down in the show description if you missed it. And I mentioned this on, I think, the last 4 episodes, and I won't keep mentioning it too much longer, but I just want to make sure that everybody hears it. I figured out the issue with a lot of the ads on some of the old episodes. What had happened was when I switched over my RSS host from Red Circle to Spreaker semi-recently, there was already ads embedded into the episodes. So when they got transferred over, they had ads in them, and then they have the ads on top of Spreaker. So unfortunately, right now, I'm going to have to go back through and replace every single audio file one at a time. So it's going to be a bit of a process, but it'll eventually get fixed, and I do apologize for all of the inconvenience, but unfortunately there's nothing I can do about it too quickly, and at least I figured out the problem so I can start working on it a bit. But moving on to other things, the next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries will be on October 2nd, so if anybody has any questions, clips, articles, anything like that they would like to submit for that, make sure you get it to us before then. But of course, as we get a bit closer, we will have some updates and give you guys more info through the show and on social media. And the t-shirt giveaway is still going on. If anybody is interested in possibly winning a free t-shirt of their choice off of the Bizarre Reality merch store, all you guys have to do is fill out an 8-question survey. All your guys' thoughts and opinions should only take maybe 5 minutes at the most. And you guys will be entered in to win that. Once it hits 50, I will use a random number generator and pick a random winner out of that. And it's all your guys' thoughts and opinions to hopefully help the show grow. So if you guys don't mind taking a few minutes to do it, I would really, really appreciate it, of course, on a personal level. And moving on to other things, if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys can call or text the Bizarre Reality hotline, which I had mentioned a little bit earlier, but if you missed that number again, it is 313-364-1551, and you guys can call or text that 24/7, of course. And if you'd like to support the show, there are a handful of different ways that you guys can do so. First and foremost, you guys can go and check out the Bizarre Reality Media Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free / early access and full access. And if you guys can also go and check out the Bizarre Reality merch store with t-shirts, just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20 with shipping. So it's about average for a lot of the t-shirts out there. And you guys can support one of the little guys in the process. And you guys can also donate to the show directly if you guys find any value in it. You guys can always buy me an energy drink to keep me up through the night editing these episodes for you guys. And the last thing you guys can do is go and check out the affiliate links, which have some additional discounts and credits available for you guys. And I know times are tough out there, but if you'd still like to support the show in some other ways, you guys can always go and leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify. And of course, if you guys type something nice out, I will read it on the show and give you guys a big shout out. You guys can also go and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook. You guys can share the show or share an episode if you think anybody might really enjoy it. Might even give you guys something new to talk about possibly. And you guys can also go and check out the show live on the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube and Twitch channels. And the last way you guys can support the show is by supporting my other show too, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, diving into a lot of the same stuff, but we deep dive into stuff instead of doing it through guest perspective. So might give you an extra show to listen to throughout the week and give you guys something a little bit different to listen to. And every single thing that I mention is all available in the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome back to the show for his first return since episode number 3 of this show. Please welcome back to the show, Benjamin Balderson, the off-grid Odinist. I had to make sure that I said that one correctly because you said that you don't go by Heathenist anymore. You go by Odinist. I want to be specific for you, my friend.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be back. How you been, brother?
Not too bad, man. Absolute pleasure to have you back on the show. It's always nice to connect with people, and I feel like the first time we did the interview was when I was really, really early in my show. I was still trying to get my feel for things, and I think our first interview was literally like a straight-up interview where I just had 10 questions. I asked you. I just kind of left it at that. We didn't even really get to have like a full discussion, so I feel like this one will be fun now that I've kind of fell into my bearings as far as podcasting goes.
Yeah, it takes a minute. The very first show that I did, I distinctly remember. Because when I started, actually, it was back before YouTube was even doing the live streaming. And they had this thing, I think it was called Google Meets, is I think what it was called.
Yeah, I think they're still running that. I have it on my phone because they turned Duo into Meets. So Meets is now just like their FaceTime.
Yeah, it was just basically like a FaceTime. And that's basically, it was just me and some of my friends, bouncing our crazed ideas off each other and having a good time with it. And then it turned into all this. And the first time that I was on a show and I got left by myself, that's literally the first time it struck me that other people were watching me. And it wasn't just me talking to people, one or two friends that there was, and I'm like, oh shit. What do I, it froze me up, and only for a minute. Then I just kind of zoned out and started babbling.
See, sometimes it's hard to talk to yourself because, I give props to a lot of these podcasters that are able to just talk for like an hour straight by themselves. Like, I need something. I need like paperwork. I need like at least like not a script, but like a story of like what I'm trying to go through. Like, it's a hard task to just like pull off the top of your head and just straight talk. Like doing it for like a radio show where you have music in between, all that. You only have to fill in like 5 minutes at a time. But those people that can just long form talk for an hour, 2 hours straight, man, that's a talent.
Yeah, and you see some guys like Jim Bob or Owen Benjamin or some of them other guys that are make quite a bit of money. They'll go for like 6 hours at a time with nobody else in this talk to, like you said, bounce off of. It's like they're just going for hours. You're like, wow.
That's like Alex Jones, man. That dude's been running his show for what, almost like 20 years now, and he drops like 2-3 hours every single day by himself. Like, that is crazy, dude. I know people have mixed opinions on him, whether he's a psyop, whatever, but I mean, just being able to talk that much, like, holy crap.
The guy is a crazy good entertainer. No matter whether you agree with them or disagree with them, he is entertaining and he is energetic and maintains that all the time. You're like, wow. People don't realize how drained a show will make you feel. And for him to put out that high level for that many years. It really is amazing.
Dude, he's the clip master too. Talk about like the perfect person to clip out of context. Like there is not a better person on the internet. Like again, regardless of your views, dude, like the ISOs of Alex Jones are some of the best things that exist on the internet, dude.
100%. Like those little songs that they make where it's just clips of weird shit he says and they turn it into a song. Fucking amazing. So hilarious. Or the Gay Frog song. Oh, I just love it.
Dude, I got to give a shout out to OBDM. Like, one of my highlights of my week is the fact that they do Alex Jones clips of the week. Like, that, I look forward to that all week just to see that quick montage of just out of context Alex Jones clips. It is like one of the best things on the internet to me, dude.
Yes. I mean, the Joe Rogan with Alex Jones stoned. Oh, man, that was entertainment.
Dude, so I guess before we end up going off into a whole other side tangent, because I know we had some stuff that we kind of wanted to get into today a bit. For anybody that may not be familiar with who you are exactly, what you do, all the different content you put out, why don't you give them a little bit of a background about yourself and lay down a bit of the framework, man?
Absolutely. So I said it's interesting because I started out just doing this, just BSing, and I was into alternative thinking, conspiracy, occult. I'm very heavy into the occult, more so than the conspiracy world. I'm into occult things, and I am a lab alchemist. So I actually do lab alchemy, and I have a lot of varying opinions on that compared to, and we're going to discuss some of them today, and some of the things that I've come to understand through the lab alchemy, the actual process of doing the work, as opposed to most people since the 1800s, who, when they say they are alchemists, they literally mean that they're a psychologist, that they're just going through stuff in their head, which is fine. I'm not knocking that, but that's not alchemy. It's people took and twisted what Carl Jung did. And because what Jung did was he had an idea of, he had some darker ideas about psychology, and especially about group psychology, that made him a little different than the other psychologists of the time. And he was trying to figure out a way to express that. So he looked into alchemy books, and the pictures that he saw matched what he had envisioned, more so than anything that was in mainstream. So he kind of adopted some of that into there, but he wasn't a practicing alchemist. He's not actually talking about doing the work. So his understandings of it weren't that much, but he was just making a metaphor for trying to become a better person and understand yourself. And so, which is again, all fine, except for as an occultist, that took away than anybody that's doing the actual alchemy, which is where the understandings actually come from. So you can't be somebody that's just going through a bunch of internal psychology and then say you have the same understandings as somebody that's working in a lab and actually looking at the things that are happening. It's not the same.
Dude, that's just another example of different concepts that have been hijacked and completely manipulated through time. Because, I mean, my understanding of alchemy was the base principle of it is a fundamental thing where you're working with physical things in front of you. Like, the foundation of it was essentially trying to turn things into gold. Like, it's essentially using chemistry, but in a different means because you're mixing in a different philosophy with it. But like you said, if you take the philosophy aspect of it and you're not doing the practical side of it, then you're only doing half of what the concept is. It's the combination of the two and being able to see how one functions with the other that you were actually able to establish like a real understanding of things.
Exactly. And these people have all, for the last couple hundred years, cut that out. And because of that, the philosophies have gotten very wild, because now that you're not connected to the lab and the two things don't have to match, you can go anywhere you want with it, because you have no ground anymore. And so that, because of my knowledge in that got me into the public eye quite a bit. I had my own TV show for a while. That my show went very well, but my ability to get along with the head people did not. It was a very popular show, but especially over in Europe. But I got told that I was throwing pearls before swine, and I was like, isn't that a Christian saying? And this was the biggest pagan station in the world, and it's like, isn't that a Christian saying? And we ended up having out hard, and they tried to censor me. And the one thing that was the agreed upon thing when I started out for it is that I wouldn't be censored. Like, I'll do a lot of things, but you need to let me say what I'm going to say. That's and feel free to say whatever I think. I'm not going to put up with anything less. And then they tried to censor me, so I walked. And then that ended up turning into podcasting. Well, I took a couple of years off, just like I did. It's been a few years since I've talked to you. I really haven't been doing any interviews for a couple of years, really. I get irritated about something and I need a few years off, and I live a lot of life. I don't just where a lot of these guys, a lot of the bigger names, all they do is podcast. I mean, when you're talking about what we were just talking about, well, it's something that you're like, wow, how can they do that? On the same token, if you're podcasting for 6 hours a day, sleeping for 7 or 8, and eating, showering, and stuff like that, how much of a life do you have? How much time do you have for other stuff? Where I run a whole farm, I do the lab work. I do have some other hobbies and things I like to do. So I can't devote that kind of time to it. And so taking a couple of years off never hurts my feelings, because I've got 100 other things I'm doing anyways.
Yeah, it makes it so you don't have to rely on it at that point, because, I mean, again, it seems like with a lot of the podcast stuff, and you see this happen with a lot, it's not necessarily the podcast that makes it so that it's sustainable and makes it so that you can make a living off of it. It's all the extra things that you do with it, like the merchandise, your bonus stuff, all of that type of stuff. So it's just, if you're able to do the things that you enjoy doing, the things that fully fulfill you, but you don't have to be stuck to this schedule that you have to do every single day, and you're still able to produce for yourself. I mean, that's essentially the goal, man, because at the end of the day, it's like I said, the podcasting isn't necessarily what makes it so that people can do this for a living. It's all the other side things that they're doing. So the podcast is mainly just a cherry on top and a way to get the message out about the other stuff that you're doing. Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show.
Well, the whole thing evolved so consistently. When I first started, almost nobody got paid for podcasting at all. And
all straight audio too. Like, I miss that aspect. Like, everything is expected to be video now. Like, I miss when you could just have like a straight talking radio show.
Yeah. When those were so nice for long drives and whatnot. You download a few shows, so you're gonna go on a road trip, and you just that's what you're listening to, or you put it on a speaker in the background, go do work. But I think most of the listeners now aren't doing stuff. They're mostly watching the show, watching from their phone, whatever. So it's just changed, and it's such a quick changing thing, because back then, the only people that were really making money were like Greg Carlwood and Crow and Freeman, guys that were they picked a format where the first hour everybody could listen to, and then the second hour you had to go over to their specific website, and it was like $8 a month or something like that, in order to hear the second hour of shows. And that was a real nice format. And then 2020 hit, and so many podcasters opened up, so that really hurt that market.
It's all tapering back down, though. I've noticed that there's a lot of shows that are that have been around since before I started that all are just fading out now, man. It seems like everybody's starting to give up slowly, man.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's also real hard right now. It's not even just the other podcasters. The internet media space is getting filled with mainstream people, where they're
pretending to be alt media.
Yeah. Pretending to be alt media, and
Tucker Carlson. I'm alternative media now. Like, okay, yeah, buddy.
The top name in mainstream media is now alt media, just because but he's still got a crew. He's still able to do things because do you know what kind of power and influence it takes to be able to go do things like meet with Putin, meet with, other characters of that size? Like you're talking security clearances all over the place. That's something that only happens if you have a network behind you. And so the guy's absolutely still got a network behind him and is pretending like he doesn't. Jon Stewart, guys like that pop back up. All your names that, a few that dropped off television, they all crop back up. Old WWF wrestlers have podcasts. It's so when they have that backing of having been in mainstream media, if you haven't, the chances of you coming up are super, super slim. And they've also, again, they've now changed it to where the super chats thing is such a huge thing, and the membership where actually you are getting paid while you're streaming. You see some of the bigger guys like an Andrew Wilson. That Andrew Wilson makes like $5,000 fucking dollars a live stream because of people give. Yeah, it's wild to watch, and it's people giving him super chats and things like that. So that's. Which he wasn't a big name to start out with, so he's an interesting one. But you got guys like Owen Benjamin and those guys that just came onto the scene and are huge. Well, he's been in Hollywood movies. He already has a much bigger following than it's going to take you to build up for a very long time. So it's a weird, ever changing little.
Dude, that drives me crazy that there's a lot of these celebrities that can just produce a minimal effort, absolute crap shit podcast, but on their first episode, they have thousands of listeners. They got a bunch of sponsors and stuff already. Dude, I don't know. That kind of stuff drives me insane, man. Putting in as much work as you do into this type of stuff, and then you see people that just ride in and they're just like, oh yeah, I've been here the whole time. Like, no, you fucking haven't. Like, get out of here, man. You haven't been through the ups and the downs of doing this shit. Even since I started, man, it was like, I remember when I first started, there was this whole thing about oh no, you can't get paid for any of this information. Like, it was just a no-no. Like, you did not put ads on any of your shit. Yeah. And now it's like everybody, no matter who it is. I mean, not to sound like an asshole about it, but I mean, you got to pay for the programs and stuff. Like, I get it to an extent, you're not just going to, pay for all this stuff and do all this type of stuff and then just, be putting yourself in the hole because of it. You at least got to break even to do it, Same with if you're a fucking band. Like, people have an issue with podcasters having ads, but you pay to go see a band play. Like, what's the difference here? Like, you're getting free content and all it has is ads on it. All you have to do is fast forward through it. So what the hell are you getting so mad about? Like, it's free to begin with. Like, people are fucking crazy with that shit, man. And I mean, even to bring back the alt media concept that we were kind of talking about for a minute too, the whole idea about everybody coming over from mainstream media to this alternative media space, obviously the powers in control know that they've completely lost touch with mainstream. Nobody listens to mainstream. Nobody gives an absolute fuck about mainstream. So what's the best alternative to that? Now you have to try to find a way to control the alternative media. So you create these characters where they look like they've rejected the mainstream media, but they're still connected in with all the same people. It's literally like watching politics, that you can see that it's all just a game that's playing out in front of you, but everybody pretends like they don't see these pieces working behind the scenes. And again, not to mention the fact that, they're just podcasters. There's no psyop involved in that. Like, who else in the world is actually out here sitting here talking about all of these concepts besides us? Like, if there was going to be one group that you would infiltrate, it would definitely be the podcasters. And I'm not even saying that everybody's like paid out or anything like that. Like, I was talking about it before the show when you were talking about train theory a bit. I think there's a lot of like intentional muddying the waters where they throw the truth out and then they throw a lie out. So a lot of these podcasters are out here that are diehard, think that they're telling people the truth about things. I'm sure I've fallen victim to it before too, just to throw myself into this one. That could even be part of the psyop, is you keep everybody busy over here while you got shit going on over here. Like, it almost kind of reminds me sometimes of like the hippie movement. Everybody talks about how great the hippie movement was. That entire thing was a giant psyop. You had these people that wanted to go out and go fight at war. The rest of them were going to dodge war. They didn't want to fight the war. They didn't want to be involved in anything. So what's the next best thing? You start running experiments on them and make them think that they're fighting for a cause when all they're doing is staying the fuck out of the way and getting psyops and experiments run on their head with all the LSD and everything. It's exactly what's happening with a lot of this stuff now. It's like, people think that there's the bad side and then here's the good side, not realizing that both sides have people that are corrupt on them and both sides are controlled to some extent. Like, you got to see past the broader picture. Like, if one thing isn't working anymore, start looking at the thing that works, because that's where they're putting their focus now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, they're smart about it. They're smart about it. And that it is an excellent point that you don't even need to be somebody that's an agreed controlled agent. They now, because of the way the algorithms work, if you're saying the things that they want said, they got no problem pushing you forward. They got no problem making you go viral. If you are a person that doesn't say the things that they like, they've got no problem stifling you and shutting you down. They've admitted such in Congress even. That if you're not on their page, they are definitely going to bury you somewhere deep, and only a few weirdos are going to find you, and they're fine with that. They're fine with that. That's the thing that they had to learn in the second wave of the purge, where the first wave, where the guys like Freeman Fly and Crow and them got purged and their whole channel got taken down and taken away. It basically made them into a martyr, and then made them write about everything that they said, because they were actually being censored and actually taken down. And so then in the second wave, what they learned to do is rather than purge them out, they just stifle them. And once you're stifled, you're obviously not saying anything worth a shit if you're not able to grow, and your channel's not getting any bigger, and people just forget about you. They take away your notifications, and people eventually just forget about you. And that's way more effective than making a martyr out of a person, is making them forgotten.
I can definitely say that I've seen that with my own content, in the aspect of, for whatever reason, the UFO stuff obviously is getting pushed like hardcore right now. So if I post anything that has to do with UFOs, anything extraterrestrial, you can see how many views stuff gets now. Like, it gets like ridiculous numbers. But on the flip side, if I'm talking about the Federal Reserve, I'm talking about any type of, like, cancer treatments not necessarily working in the way that they claim that they are, because I'm sure I'll get flagged for that, because I always get flagged for saying stuff like that on YouTube. That's the stuff that they stifle. That's the stuff that they don't want you to talk about. I mean, you even bring up, I've had a bunch of people on the show that, have been linked in with being used as like honeypots and stuff like that for these occult groups and for, the government organizations and everything. All of those episodes end up getting stifled back. But, you're sitting here talking about Sasquatch or aliens. Yeah, that's going to push to the top of the feed. Weird how that works, right? You try to get out the real truths that you think the average person needs to hear, and that stuff's completely stifled. But you're talking about this fun stuff that, no matter how much truth you show some people, they're not going to believe it anyways. And they're like, yeah, have fun with it. Run around in circles with it.
Exactly. They're smart. So I took a few years off. I took a few years off again after I had it out with because I went independent. But you end up making friends and get caught up in groups, and the group I was associating with was doing things I just couldn't co-sign. And I said, and I got irritated, and too many people that I was associating with and meeting and whatnot were not living out the life that they talked about. Like, this was literally just entertainment for them. And I understand that this is entertainment. It's entertaining. But for me, the things I talk about and speak about, I live. And so it's not just some fun game. It's not something to check out and have a thought experiment about for 5 minutes. It's something that, like the off-grid living, for years and years, I've lived off-grid. And I know the ins and outs of it. Things like, even when you're talking about something simple like solar power, everybody think, all the people that think solar power is going to change the world. It's got its uses, but at the end of the day, it's not that great.
You have 4 cloudy days, you got no power.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to have a hell of a battery bank to back that up, and batteries are diminishing returns bigger than shit. And unless you're trying, and the battery bank that I had for my house was 24 of these L6 giant, like golf cart batteries. And I had 24 of those, and you got to replace those every 7 years. Well, that's definitely not green. That's not great. And
that's the same shit you see at construction sites where they got like an electric fucking machine charging off of a gas powered fucking generator. Like, same concept. Like, is it really green? No, it's not. You should have just put the fucking gas in the vehicle and it would have just skipped a step here.
Exactly. And that's where so many things are landing. Well, people don't want to hear that. They got their airy fairy ideas and they want to enjoy them, and they're great. And if you haven't lived something out, it's so easy to have real high morals or real high positions about things that you haven't lived. Like when you've just thought about them in your head. And this is, again, gets back to what we were talking about with the philosophy and the alchemy. When you just have done it in your head and you haven't lived it out, oh yeah, you've got all the highest opinions about everything, and you know exactly how it's going to work, and everything's perfect. And then you go to live it, and nothing's fucking perfect.
It's like those people that do those martial art videos where they're showing you how to like get a gun away from somebody, and they're like, "All right, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and then you spin them, and then they do this." It's like, all right, that works in your head, but let's try that with practical use when somebody actually comes up to you with a gun. Good luck with that, buddy.
100%. Yeah, then you find out you're dead. Horrible.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show.
Yeah, these things where the rubber meets the road, that saying comes from where you could show me a dyno of your engine that says you have 5 billion horsepower and at 10,000 RPMs, and this engine's just ridiculous. How fast is it? When you put that in a vehicle, how does that pan out? Like, that's the whole thing. Your entire drive line, all those kind of things. It's where the rubber meets the road. That's where shit actually counts. All these little pieces of paper that you handed me, they don't mean anything. And that's the same applies for so damn many things in life. And that's it's what I've always pushed. It's what I'm pushing now. And I just got, like I said, I got around to seeing too many people that didn't do it. Like talking in the health community, and every other speaker in the thing is like obesely overweight. You're like, I'm not sure I want to listen to you. Just saying.
That's kind of like the people that are like, oh yeah, social media is bad, you need to stay away from the internet, as they're making posts about talking about how bad social media is. Like, okay, yes, buddy.
Exactly. Exactly. You're not practicing what you preach at all, and that's a real problem for me. And so the thing that I've brought back in my last couple of years hiatus, and the thing that I've been talking about, is, and it's always been my thing, is alchemy, obviously. And the philosophies that derive from it and the understandings. And so one of the big things that I can do that like Paracelsus and figures like that could not do is that, like, in a spagyric sense, I'm able to flash freeze plants. And I don't know how Paracelsus or anybody like that would have ever accomplished that. The abilities to flash freeze are fairly new things. So when that happens, normally, if you were going to go perform a spagyric experiment, you would take your plant, like let's say lavender, and you would pick it and then dry it out properly, which is getting the water out of the plant. And you want to do that in a real gentle way, with a decent humidity, decent coolness. Was she yelling?
I think she is for my help.
Decent coolness. That way it doesn't scorch the oil, doesn't make the oil come out with the plant. And you would and after the plant is dry, you would start your spagyric process. Well, with being able to flash freeze it, and then the combination of flash freezing and having access to bulks of different like hydrocarbon gases, things like that, I'm able to pick the plant while it's live and immediately put the plant negative 150. So the plant doesn't even ever get time to know that it's dead. And then when you use like a hydrocarbon gas that won't bond with water, then that's able to flush right through there, get around all the water, strip the oil out. And so you can do this while the plant's still basically alive. Well, in doing so, I noticed that the oil in the plants that are live it's got an almost neon brilliance to it. Like it literally looks alive. And if I do it on a dried plant, it narrows down and becomes like a deeper golden color. And if I do it on an older plant, it will start turning like a reddish purplish, and then it'll turn black. Well, then through the distillation process, which is what you're going to do with the oil after you've extracted it a lot of times, is you're going to distill it, and according to the heat, each component's going to distill off differently. Now, the first advantage and why I started out doing the flash freezing is because the terpene level of oil is the most volatile. Literally just the light in the morning before the sun even hits the plants is enough to start burning off those terpenes. That's why your garden in the morning and whatnot smells so crazy strong right when it becomes light, because that is literally the most volatile levels of oil burning off and coming out into the air. And that's what you're smelling. And so sorry, animals fighting and the wife yelling.
Yeah, I was gonna say I heard somebody yelling in the background after the cat was yelling there for a minute.
yeah, there was animals getting it, and the wife was yelling. I'd jump up and make sure that wasn't anything too crazy. But I was trying to preserve those volatile terpenes by picking the plants before the light hit, and while it's still dark out, and then freezing them and locking those terpenes in place. And through that is where I started noticing this, and I call it what I would say is this is the sulfur component inside the oil. And so that sulfur is the life of the plant. And as that gets older, it degrades. Now, when I do my distillation, your other levels of oil in the plant are all clear. And you can actually distill off that darkness, which isn't really then a thing of the oil. It's a thing in the oil. And so this is, to me, the sulfur component of the plant. And being able to do that while the plant's alive makes an entire difference on everything. Now, at that point, you start going through the rest of the typical spagyrical process, which is just taking, after you've taken the oil and made that pristine, you take the plant material and you just burn it down, calcinate it, and then extract out the salts out of the oil. Now, here's the thing that this other understanding brought me to, is your classic understanding is that the salt is masculine and the sulfur is feminine, and that mercury is neutral in between. And that's just not true. And it's through this being able to flash freeze and getting this understanding of the sulfur component that I was able to figure this out. And so what we have is, as an Odinist, our creation story is that everything started out as the All. And the All splits into the All Mother and the All Father. But those two things, the All Mother being then immaterial and the All Father being the material, those two things are now just balancing each other out. There's really no interaction happening here, no spark. So the All Father splits like the All did before him. And when the All Father splits, it splits into a sulfur and a salt, into a positive and a negative, a fire and an ice. And those two things are polarized against each other. So this is literally the masculine side being split and fighting against itself. And this is natural. The vapor wants to rise, salt wants to sink. And so when this happens, this is where the All Mother comes in, or Gununga Gap as an Odinist, and pulls these two opposing forces together. And where the Vesca Pisces of these two worlds meet is where life happens. And so the Mercury is doing the action of the All Mother, and the salt and the sulfur are both masculine. One is a more chaotic masculine, and one's a more stable masculine, or a masculine and feminine inside the masculine. But this is literally the two masculine components being healed and reunited. So the great work in alchemy, then, rather than marrying the masculine and feminine, is actually more accurately the healing of the masculine through the feminine. That's
what I was kind of figuring that you were driving at. It's a matter of like the feminine is what makes it so that the masculine can almost keep itself in control.
Yes. And it's able to heal itself and bring both the high and the low through the feminine. And so it's not a marriage of opposites. And in that, this absolutely destroys the hermaphroditic concept that so much New Age puts on this. Because it's not even just a marriage of the masculine and feminine. It's a healing of the masculine in and of itself. So everything that's solvent then is feminine, and only inside of the feminine can this transaction happen. Can this great work happen? Feed your kids. Their mom's in here, so they're screaming around.
That's what I figured it was. I had a feeling that you had a cat that had some babies, because that was like a constant like food cry. I was like hearing it throughout the background. So
yeah, very annoying.
It's subtle background noise. The listeners, every time there's been an animal in the background, they tend to enjoy it, so that's totally okay. I had somebody that had a dog barking through the whole background, and they just asked the whole show what the dog looked like. So
like the big question is, what's the dog look like?
What kind of dog is that? Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave.
on my show, which now at this point is Deliberating Dogface Dudes, but it's under my channel. I'm doing my chant, just Benjamin Balderson. My Odin's Alchemy's gone. YouTube did not like it. Rockfin screwed everybody. But the
does that even exist anymore? Because I remember that being a huge thing when I first started, and I haven't heard anybody even say Rockfin.
Yeah, they screwed everybody over. Just horrible company. They just burned everybody, burned all their bridges. They ended up they were paying out in a computer
crypto, right?
Yeah, it was a crypto thing, and then their crypto went down to nothing, literal nothing. It's all just came out super scammy. I think the only thing that's really over there now is college wrestling.
Hey, college wrestling needs a place too, I guess.
Oh, exactly. Well, and if I read that they're in a big lawsuit over that because a bunch of the features that the college wrestling place was counting on were not functional, because anybody that used Rockfin knows that the chat was absolutely horrible. Like half those functions on those things did not ever work. And rather than put money, when they borrow money to put it in places where people really would have wanted it, and to make things like the chat work and things like that's not where they put their money. It was just an asinine company. And then at the end of it all, like the reason I went over there is because I was told that I am not computery, so if I sound retarded while I'm saying this, you must forgive me. I live off grid. I can run a lab. I built my own farm, ran the electricity, the plumbing, all that shit, but I don't know how to use computers. And
you're more practical, like you were kind of mentioning, even with your stuff. It's just you hands-on practical shit.
Yeah, exactly. And they said that somehow our shows were tied to the blockchain, and because of that, we owned our shows and owned the information, and they couldn't even take it down if they wanted to, and all this other nonsense. And absolutely that wasn't true. They took a bunch of us that weren't charging people out the gate, and it really is frustrating because one of the first things that screwed them over or they screwed themselves over with was the original plan was like $7 or $8, and if you subscribed to any creator on Rockfin, you now had access to all the Rockfin, all the creator stuff, even the stuff that was behind paywalls. Just by subscribing to one person, you had access to everybody's. Well, then they turned it into like, if you wanted that level of access, you had to pay $15 or something like that. And you could pay $5 just to access one individual creator. Well, I had a bunch of people that were just to support me, even though I didn't put my stuff behind the paywall. I had a bunch of subs, and doing so just to support me, because I've never actually monetized in any way except for Rockfin, which I didn't monetize it. It just comes with being on Rockfin. Before you're even on Rockfin, you have to set up a crypto wallet and things like that, or else you can't even be on Rockfin. Because everything's supposedly tied to the blockchain.
I'm instantly turned off to anybody that says they exclusively pay in crypto. Like, that's already like a red flag to me, because I assume that there's some scammy shit going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and these guys were. I mean, while it was good while it lasted, I ended up figuring out how to convert it but then it went down to they quit paying out the way they were supposed to, and then afterwards, because they quit paying out, all confidence got lost. Their thing went to zero, and it basically cut out most people. Well, then anybody who didn't have it turned on to where it was member exclusive or whatever, they just kicked off the platform. I was one of them. And then they just took away all the shows, despite this whole nonsense we got told of. They can't even take down our shows even if they wanted to. Well, weird, you did. And so, yeah, all that's gone. And we were all sold that Rockfin was going to be censor free, because that's where Rockfin really took off. Because when you're talking about 3 years ago, that's the 2021 2022 Dude, era.
Every single episode that I had in that era, I had a notice on it that said COVID misinformation. Every single episode.
Yep. And we were getting pinned left and right. We were losing our channels. And Rockfin didn't, for that specific thing. Well, it turns out that, there's other things that Rockfin don't want you to talk about. Although that's very arbitrary, because it's just weird. Anyways, they can take away your shows, and they sure did. And they owe me a bunch of money, not a bunch, but a chunk of money, and because they just quit paying out. Like, I can even go on to I don't know if I can anymore now that they basically closed it. But I used to be able to go on my thing, and it even showed where I had tips and things like that they had never paid me for and whatnot. And they just kind of screwed everybody over. And this is what happened to the whole community. Everybody, because YouTube burned all of us. And so then we all went and scrambled to find different alternative platforms, but then understand that the alternative platform only stays alternative until it gets big enough to sell out to the big boys, and then it does, and then boom, you're right back to square one.
That's where Rumble's about to be, I think, in the next year or two, because that's building up so fast that they took that spot of Rockfin, and I noticed how quick that happened. It's just a matter of time before they become compromised. It's the same as with some of the browsers that people use, for example. People use DuckDuckGo thinking that they're getting some type of alternative search results, not realizing that DuckDuckGo sold out to the point where they started using Google's algorithm, and the only other web search you can really use that gives you a whole fresh search that's unfiltered is Brave. But it's only a matter of time before that one gets infiltrated. But in all fairness, maybe that one might stay safe because it was created by somebody who was a pissed off Google engineer. So, I mean, vengeance goes a long way, I guess.
At the end of the day, big money is able to pretty much, we've got to quit being a society of sellouts. But it doesn't matter what venue you're talking about whether it's in even like Bitcoin. Bitcoin was originally started with this idea of being in an alternative, basically trade-based monetary system in order to take us out of this, dollar system. And now Bitcoin is just every
Dude, there's
bit
a
as
Bitcoin
bad.
ATM at almost every single gas station in my area at this point. Like, that's when you know that shit doesn't work the way that it was intended to, is because they literally have ATM machines for fucking Bitcoin now. That's crazy.
Exactly. And they if they subsume everything. They'll if they let it happen, that's because they let it happen, and then they subsume it. It's just how it works, and it's hard to stay pure with anything. It really is.
Dude, I mean, even kind of going back around to what we were talking about with like podcasters and people not necessarily like living the life that they claim that they live, man. I've noticed one thing where like with a lot of my stuff that I do, like my foundation is trying to get to like the root of the research. It doesn't matter like what the perspective is. That's why I have, people on that are theologians. I have people on such as yourself, I have people on that are like Satanists and everything. It's about getting to like the root of the information. But even within that, it's like I'll see a lot of people that there's a lot of guests that people have on shows that, are just straight bullshit. And they promote these ideas thinking that they're doing something good and making it so that they're just muddying the waters even more. Like, I mean, a lot of these people that are in like, I'm not trying to discredit anybody's encounters, but there are those ones that that it's somebody that strictly made up a story for the sake of coming on a podcast, but the story's so fucking out there and crazy that all these podcasters want to have them on the show. And it's just like, if you're trying to do just for the real research, then this person's full of shit. It's the same concept with a lot of like some of these conspiracies. Like there are some that are just simply psyop shit, and that people will still have people on the show talking about it like they fully believe in it, and they'll act like they believe in it just for the sake of knowing that that's what people want to hear, even though they think that the concept's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, once you start getting paid from any particular concept, you pigeonhole yourself. Like if your audience is paying you because you're saying like one of the dumbest conspiracies that's really gained some traction in the last couple of years, in my opinion, is that planes run without fuel.
Yeah, use your logic for things. Like this is just psyoping people just to take them away from using actual logic to get to a conclusion to something.
Yeah, absolutely fucking retarded. And people will propagate that and keep pushing it. And most people, because they don't know even how a toaster works, like they will go around and push that. Well, myself, actually, weirdly enough, I was a 62 Bravo in the Army. Well, a 62 Bravo is a construction equipment and tracked vehicle repairman. Glorious job. Lots of, everybody talks about the dirty mechanics in back. And so, so this is a low level, not conspiracy people, not wearing a white coat. That's for damn sure. But I still had to know how a damn turbine works, and a turbine doesn't run without fuel. But you see that shit get propagated. Well, if you start making a bunch of money because you're one of the head experts in in fact, you know what? There's a real life example of somebody that this happened to. Jaron. Jaron did this whole final experiment thing, and whether you agree with it or not or whatever, the fact is the guy made his living off of flat Earth and the flat Earth community. Well, he comes out, changes his position because of what he saw. He changed his mind and is no longer a flat earther. And you bet tanked. That guy's got a giant show, and now it's a fraction of the size. He makes basically no money. Just completely tanked himself. Well, most people aren't willing to do that. That's just a fact. If you're paying me to say that, if you've been giving me a bunch of money because you like it when I say planes fly without fuel, well, I like it when I make money and can pay my bills. So I'm going to keep saying planes fly without fuel. And this is what happens to these guys. Even if they don't believe, like you said, even if they don't believe, they don't.
There's no logic in their claim. Like, it's just, if you break it down to its simplest components, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, even talking about a lot of the new agey stuff that you brought up, it's like there's so many people that sit here and they preach all these new age concepts without any deep understanding for it. Or even if you break down the concept that they're trying to preach, it doesn't make any logical sense. Like, I've cornered people on accident a few times in these spots where they'll make these outrageous claims, and then I'll start questioning little portions of their claim, and they get backed into a corner and they don't know anywhere to go because there's no logical buildup to how they've gotten to that point. They'll take the end goal and then they try to make everything else make sense underneath it, where you have people like myself that it's like, I may throw this ridiculous claim, but I got there from all of these basic components that led up to that point making sense. I don't try to make that thing make sense and find the pieces afterwards. I get to that point by finding the pieces to make it to that point.
That is a huge thing, because then it's just confirmation bias. They confirmation bias their way back down. And of course, if you're looking for something that leads me to this, you'll always find it. 100%. You'll find it.
You see that with a lot of like the number stuff. I mean, I find some of the number stuff fascinating. Like, some people are really, really onto something, but then you hear these other people that'll be like, all right, here's this number, but if you divide it by this, and then you add it by this, and then you times it by this, and then you add it by this, then it equals this number, and this obviously is an evil number. And it's like, yeah, but like, how many different variations of math did you have to do to get to that number?
You're talking while doing that, because that's exactly the only way them fuckers talk. They do this thing called Gish Gallop, where they say so many things. Anytime you try and stop and analyze one of the things you say, you get lost. So you have to just basically follow along with their Gish Gallop, and they talk just like you did. You pick, as soon as you started imitating them, you sped up your speech by like double. And like guys like Marty Leeds and guys like that,
the people that try to make a point with no rational decision on how they get there, they speed up. Because I've noticed this a lot, just how many interviews I've done. If somebody has a good, solid point, they slow down when they talk, and they start describing each piece slowly to make sure that everybody's keeping up with the point. But if you're just trying to get to the end result and have people agree with you, you bombard them with information so, again, like you said, they can't discern any of it. And then they go, oh, yeah, that makes sense, because they don't want to look like an idiot because they got lost in all the shit you just threw at them. Like, once you do stuff like this long enough, you really develop how to read people, and you can tell who's full of shit and who's not, simply just off of their mannerisms and the way they talk.
Yeah, it really does. And it's funny because, like, the gematria guys, all the gematria guys talk like that. Everyone I've ever heard. And it's super interesting. It's like, this is part of where you start seeing like archetypes, where the archetype idea works, where you start noticing that guys that are pitching a certain spiel all do it in the same way. They all kind of have that, like, they just did 3 lines of coke right before they hit the go live button. You're like, holy fuck, slow down a little bit there, bro. You're vibrating. You are. I can see your body going.
It's like the bullshit conspiracy guys. They lead with fear and then they fill everything else in afterwards. It's like there's different ploys to each one of these things. Like, again, if you have a real conspiracy, you don't just throw it out there because you know you're going to lose people. You got to build up and say, all right, does this make sense now? You don't just throw out the fear porn, because if you throw out the fear porn, then people will sit there and they'll, again, associate everything to make sense because they're already like, oh no, like, woo. Like, you see this with a lot of like articles, that it's that whole concept that people only read the headline, they don't actually read the article. You throw out the fear so that everybody is like, oh shit, off of the initial headline, and then they don't actually care about the rest of the information.
It's funny because clickbait used to be, they would mistitle it, and that way you would click on it in order to read the article, but people have just bypassed reading the article, so they just restate the headline like it's true, like they're experts and and this is all true, and they don't even know what was in the article. It's hilarious.
Dude, I get so much of that people will bombard me with information, and they're like, what's your opinion on this? I'm like, give me 5 minutes. And then I'll go and I'll start searching some stuff up, and I'll be like, all right, well, exactly what you said is part of this bigger portion that you're saying that this person made this claim without knowing the context before and afterwards. So, not true. I don't have an opinion on this because it's bullshit to begin with.
Exactly. And just basic research is when, and I really blame the extreme growth that the community had in 2020 for that. That before this, it was just a bunch of people that really enjoyed research and were super nerdy. And, there was only a few people around like Freeman Fly or Art Bell or guys like that. and it was a real niche community of people that, basically looked like a street preachers out, the apocalypse coming, all the government officials are against you. They're like, oh, you're fucking crazy, and when it was like that, it was a very well informed community, and now the community isn't. It's a bunch of people jumped in on 2020, the Q thing, the COVID
Nobody cares
thing.
about references anymore. They just hear the information. They don't care where it came from. It's like, if you're going to do real research, you have to figure out where the root of that claim came from. Otherwise, where's your basis of information? You can't change your opinion off of a statement without knowing where the hell the statement came from.
Yeah.
It's going back into some of the new agey stuff that you say, like you were talking about. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will take something out of context and they'll start preaching that concept without, again, having any real understanding of it.
You want to know, and we talk about this on the show, one of the biggest ones is something like Lilith.
Oh my God. I got into I've been in this huge internet argument with this Lilith concept lately that nobody knows who the fuck Lilith is. Like, it's driving me batshit crazy.
Yeah. So there was no Lilith, and Lilith became a thing in this. It's called the Alphabet of Ben Sirah, which is a medieval Jewish play. And so it's literally an entertainment that somebody made up. The only mention historically of Lilith, and it's not even of Lilith before that, is supposedly there's a pantheon of beings called the Lilith-2. It's not an individual's name. It's not an individual being. It's a whole bunch of specific demons that are primordial, and they were called the Lilith-2. And so this Lilith character is completely made up, and it's out of a play. And then in the late 1800s, the Jewish women's liberation movement grabbed onto that. It's from a Jewish medieval play. So, of course, that's where they would start sourcing their kind of things. So the Jewish women's movement started spreading this message of Lilith and evolving this character. And now you've got an entire world of white girls that, know 100% this story of this ancient being called Lilith that was the husband of Adam, but refused to submit to him and have missionary sex, because that's totally what all guys want.
Inquiries About Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back, so let's hop right in. Dude, I was making this point earlier, too, that everybody sees, like, Eve as this, like, submissive character, but it's like, at the end of the day, if you just look at the simple text of how everything went down in the Garden of Eden, supposedly, she's not submissive, because the whole premise of it is that she was the one who was tempted and ate first of the forbidden fruit and then gave Adam a piece of the forbidden fruit. So just simply off of that is going against, what everybody told her. Like, the one fucking rule was don't eat the forbidden fruit. And she said, fuck you, I'm going to go eat the forbidden fruit because I was tempted into doing it. So even using her as the whole concept of saying, oh, that's a submissive woman and Lilith is women empowerment, the breakdown simply of that logic makes no sense, because essentially Eve paved her own path according to the story for the rest of humanity. So she definitely was not a submissive woman.
Absolutely. And then the tributes that they started giving to Lilith. Why would Lilith control fertility? Lilith didn't even get pregnant and refused to have sex. Why would Lilith be a fertility goddess? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And this is something that has come with the New Age, where they try to moosh all these religions together into one thing. Specifically, the Theosophical Society had a giant hand in that, where Blavatsky started that whole process. She handed it down to Alice Bailey, and Alice Bailey was the head of the Lucifer Trust, which then became the Lucius Trust, which then became the spiritual wing of the United Nations. And that whole basically ideology was passed on and propagated from there, where they tried to moosh all the religions together, including they developed a concept called the Great White Brotherhood, which, a lot of New Agers talk about, where it's basically, up in Shambhala somewhere, all your favorite, almost like a Super Friends Marvel meetup of all the best superheroes are just waiting in Shambhala, like looking down on us, waiting until we're super fucked. Like, no, they aren't suffering enough. But when the suffering is super bad, like when people are getting ramrodded with pineapples and bitten by scorpions on a daily basis, then maybe we will come down and save everybody, and then everybody will spiritually ascend and blah, blah, blah.
Dude, we've been at that point forever. I mean, look at it, fucking sex trafficking, how big that whole thing has gotten. If there was going to be something that came down and, like, stopped all this shit, like, it would have already happened by now. Like, society has gotten to a point now where we're essentially living in this idea of, like, Sodom and Gomorrah, but again, where the fuck is all these saviors, and also where's everything getting destroyed for being blasphemous, man? Like, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, there was no, weirdly enough, the gay parade downtown doesn't ever seem while they're sitting there in public humping each other and 69ing and shit, nobody turns into pillars of salt. Apparently it's not as offensive anymore. Who knew?
Hey, apparently you're allowed to be naked in public now as long as you're not touching your junk. But, you can't preach anything. You can't put anything about philosophy, belief, no matter what system you're coming from. But you can run around with your dick out. That's totally cool.
Yeah. Hey, I'll be happy when we can just pee where we want again.
As long as it's not near school. Because that I've had a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of people that ends very badly for.
Yeah. But you know what? If I'm cruising along on the road, I should be able to pull off at an exit, jump down in the ditch, drain it real quick, and get back in my car without this being a problem. Like that's weird that's a problem for people.
Yeah, but it's totally okay if people are wearing these like overly sexualized outfits and marching through parades through the street. Like, that's okay. But if somebody simply is like tucked behind their truck trying to take a piss, indecent exposure.
Exactly. You're now a sex offender. I wasn't trying to have sex. I was trying to take a leak. What are we talking about?
Would you rather I do it in my pants? Like, I would prefer to just do it on the ground, because that's, as far as I'm concerned, what everything has been doing since the beginning of time. Like, you just piss on the ground, it absorbs into the ground, no harm, no foul. It's not like I'm taking a shit in the middle of the fucking street,
And when that does happen, like when people complain about San Francisco, like I live just north of San Francisco. I've been down there a number of times. When you go down there, most of the places, they'll tell you that their bathroom is out of order. And so let's say I just drove 4 hours to get here, and now I'm going to want refreshments and to use the bathroom, but I can't use the bathroom. Absolutely. I'm pissing on the back of your building. 100%. That's the way that's going down. And so when they're showing these videos of these people down there pooping and peeing in the street, they got nowhere else to go to the bathroom. And guess what? People poop and pee. That's just biology. And if you've got it was super frustrating the last time Christy and I were down and hung out in San Francisco. Do you know homie Donanaki Dan and homie Romy?
Yeah, I talked to them a really long time ago. I'm aware of who they are, but I haven't really talked to them in like at least probably 3 years. I talked to Dan. Yeah,
I think they're defunct. They kind of quit. But
just like a lot of them, man. Everybody I started with, they're all fucking gone, dude.
Yeah. But I went down and did like a thing with those guys down in the Bay, and it was Romy was very interested in the Tartarian idea and whatnot, and the old world idea, and so they wanted to they put together a tour and had a guide of all the old architecture and whatnot in San Francisco. And so I was like, hell yeah, I'll go to that. That's going to be awesome. And then in the evening, we went and saw Sam Tripoli and Eddie Bravo and whatnot. So I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So we went down there. Well, let me tell you what, the old world thing's horse shit. Like the World Fair down there, anybody that's done construction at all, that's literally poured concrete blocks that they had shipped in and stacked together like Legos. Like that's how come that went up in a week or two, because all the pieces were pre-made. And DC and old school DC power, you can just string that. Like I could string that whole thing and light it up in myself in a week. It's not an impressive feat where everybody's like, oh my God, how did they do this?
It's because you're looking at the pictures and you don't have the context. There's like 10 pictures that exist, and they take them from these really prolific spaces, and it's old pictures, so you don't really get any kind of feel or depth for like the material or anything really in it. It just looks like it's kind of flushed.
Yeah, even the statues, they don't look good. Like when you're pulling up on San Francisco and you're on that big arch bridge, yeah, it looks super cool until you get close to it. And then you're like, this isn't even, I've seen Home Depot garden statuary that's more detailed than this. Like, this is really bad. But when we're down there, they had porta potties around. Well, they had them chained up, literally a log chain wrapped around them and the padlocked. So they had bathrooms for people, but they left them, but they closed them all. And then you're going to cry around because people are peeing and pooping on the street. Well, they got to pee and poop.
You got to drop some porta potties somewhere. But I mean, that's like intentional chaos at that point, because it's like, it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, are the bathrooms really out of order? Is it a matter of also the homeless problem has gotten so bad there that it's like some of these business owners just don't want people posting up and now using their bathroom as a fucking house? So it's like, it's a double-edged sword on it. It's like people need to go to the bathroom, but on the other side, just a lot of these people, you can't open up the bathroom to them because next thing you know, they're going to live in there and be doing drugs in your fucking bathroom. Like
100%. We've seen it. My wife, she went into town here in Garberville and they gave her the code to the bathroom and she opens up the door and there's dude knotted out, needle in the arm and everything. Just got done doing a bump and had to take a little nappy poo after the bump. Like, in 100%, I understand that they don't want those people in their bathroom, but you got to give people some place to go to the bathroom. That's how life works. Well,
I mean, they're already giving out needles and shit like that on the street in some of these places. So at a certain point, it's like, just drop a fucking porta potty at every corner, you know? Create a new aspect of jobs, because then at that point, you can even employ some of the homeless people to fucking be the people that go around and clean these damn porta potties out. Like, 2 birds, 1 stone. No more shit on the streets, and you're also creating jobs and income for people.
100%. But no, they don't do anything that's actually logical. So everything's turned into this weird world where they got to pretend like people don't poop and pee and things like that.
The system's intended to not work properly, because if it works properly, then, there's not going to be a need for them. It's like the whole concept that, who was it? I don't remember the guy's name offhand, but he was somebody that basically came to the U.S. government and basically said, like, here's an idea on how, Secretary of State and everything could work, and it would be a lot more sufficient for everybody. And they didn't want to fucking hear it, because it's about not making stuff efficient for people, because you're creating your own work at that point and making sure you have a job. If everything runs fucking smooth, how many people do you need really running it? Like, you only need maybe like a handful, but if you act like there's all these constant problems going on everywhere, it's just employing more people. And then once you get more people on the payroll, then now you have to keep up this facade. Otherwise, people are losing jobs and losing their home. The more you expand the system, the more that it's going to continuously expand, because all of these people don't want to lose their job, and then they find a cushy job for their friend, and it just continuously expands from there. That's why there's so much inbreeding within all of these different groups too, that it's just, same shit as like any fucking place. You work at a factory, who ends up working there? People that are friends with the people that already work there. That's exactly how the system works.
100%. And the perfect example of all this is the prohibition of cannabis. Where it was just after the prohibition of alcohol, where they had these entire units and all these other things built up ready to bust people for alcohol. Well, those people were all out of a job once the prohibition of alcohol lifted. So they pushed the prohibition of cannabis, and all of a sudden, wouldn't you know, we got teams of people just waiting to do this job. And that's absolutely how it works. You get in with the government, you don't lose a job. They'll just shuffle you somewhere else. And
then they learn how to control the shit, because I'm sure that coming from somebody that practices alchemy, like, you probably have seen this progression as things have gone on, especially living in California. I have somebody that's worked in the cannabis industry since the inception of it in Michigan, and all I've seen is that you take a spiritual plant and then you remove any spiritual aspect to it, and you basically create the shell of what it used to be, and then you genetically alter it so it becomes something else. And I'm always using the relation of tobacco. Like, it was this super spiritual plant for the natives. It was this totally different concept of what people think they were. And this really set in stone when I had a friend who goes down to like Peru, and they actually talk to some of these shamans, and they have this natural grown tobacco that's out in the middle of the fucking jungle. He sent some up to me. It does not taste anything like the tobacco that we have here. And coming from somebody, again, who smoked before it was fucking legal in my state and everything, like, the taste of that, like the entire aura of it was just totally different. Like when I used to smoke, I'd feel creative. I feel like I wanted to go do all this different stuff. The taste was good. You'd enjoy the flavor of it. Now that it's become so corporatized, again, it's a shell of what it used to be. They're spraying all this shit on the plants. I'm pointing out the fact that most of these companies, you're spraying sulfur, you're spraying all of these heavy chemicals on these plants. None of it's getting rinsed off. You're just harvesting the shit, drying it out, and throwing it up. There's only so much of these chemicals that you spray on this shit that's going to come off. There's no rain. It's not outside. It's not getting washed off the plant. It just remains on the plant or it gets pushed into the plant. And again, even just commercializing anything, man, you get to a point where you're taking away that spiritual connection with the plant. Like when I first started, dude, it was just this weird feeling. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm sure other people have noticed it that work in cannabis. The plants themselves just seemed happier. Like they had a different look to them. They were more luscious looking. Like the green was just a bit different. And all I've seen in the past 7 years is these plants are just getting darker and darker and less happy and more uniform. Like they're just pushing them into something that isn't what they are anymore. And with that, I mean, you're able to take away spirituality from people. You know, I always kind of relate this shit to like Brave New World, that they try to predict these messages before they actually happen. And they regularly talk about this idea of Soma, you know, in Brave New World, that if you're going to create this society that lives essentially godless at a certain point, you have to create something that develops a religion. And when you have something like the cannabis industry now, that it's developed its own, I guess you could say, like current culture of what it is, it's inevitable that that's eventually going to become somewhat of like a religion or like a practice that people are preaching. So what I've been saying forever is I don't think that the push for cannabis is necessarily like, oh, you know, people shouldn't be getting in trouble for this plant. It's a matter of creating a controlled opposition where you can create this synthetic spirituality for people, and there's no actual true natural link to what it originally was anymore. You're just manipulating people's thoughts through this stuff. And even continuing on with cannabis, dude, like when it first started off, you know, strongest cannabis you're getting was like 8 to 10%. Now you're hitting like 20, 30% because it's so genetically altered to be significantly stronger. And when you get to that point, you're now not feeling creative. You're getting to a point of psychosis where, you know, they're starting to tell people now that same thing with psychedelics. Like if you have a family linked to schizophrenia, they suggest don't do psychedelics because it might end up kicking something in. I know at least 2 people. One of them was actually a close personal friend that from smoking weed and the shit getting stronger and them getting into edibles, all this type of shit, they had gotten to that point where they had the same effect that people have with a lot of these psychedelics where that schizophrenia ends up kicking in. Like the shit's getting too strong and it doesn't have that spiritual connection anymore. So essentially it's turning people into mindless fucking drones at this point. And that is, people are making that their personality. Like it's supposed to be something that you use as an accent to something else. You don't form your entire personality off of this substance. That doesn't make any sense. Even with like alchemy, like it's a combination of all these plants. You're not just, this is the only plant, the end all be all to everything.
Right. Absolutely. And the worst part about this whole thing is people actually kind of ask for it more than kind of. So when you look at this specific industry, when it was fully illegal, and you maybe had a couple states that had medical, you were paying $5,000 to $7,000 for a pound. In California now, people are selling $40 ounces.
Yeah, same with Michigan. When I first started, you know, $1 a point, $35 eighths. Now you can get a fucking ounce for $20-$30 in most places.
Yep, exactly. And the market demands that. Well, in order for you to make money on that, so this is
mass produced garbage, man. Like working from inside these facilities, it's all just mass produced garbage.
100%. Because if you're a guy that's small, that say grows 90 plants, 99 or whatever, so you're staying underneath the federal limits and whatnot. Let's say you produce 100 pounds. Well, if you profit, because you've got a lot that took to grow these, just like any other farm industry, all the nutrients you had to pay for, all the electricity, you know, all the other kind of things that it took to run your operation. So by the time you're done, if you're profiting $500 a pound and you got 1,000 pounds, you're making pretty good money. Well, when they dropped it down to where literally pounds are selling for $200 and $300, where's your profit margin in that? Well, so in between myself and town, there's a giant grow that's legal, and it's owned by one of the heirs of the Sears Roebuck Company, because of course rich people are the only people that can afford to do these giant things like this. They produce 400,000 pounds a year.
They push the little guys out, man. Like, I'm sure you've seen it in your state too. It started off where you could work hand in hand with the caregiver, and then it got to a point where it's like, all right, you can't buy from a caregiver, but you can buy them a license, and now they work under you. And now it's gotten to the point where there's no caregivers. It's monopolizing because you're pushing all the small guys out of the industry because they can't profit on it. And then once they can't profit on it, only the big dogs can come in. And this is exactly what was happening during COVID with all the stores. You knock out all the little guys because they can't afford to stick around with the big guys because the big guys outdo them because they have the expendable income to do it. And even if they fail, they're going to be fine because they still have a shit ton of investments elsewhere.
Well, and when you're producing 400,000 pounds, even if you're only profiting $50 a pound, you're rich.
Dude, they cut and run hard. The first company that I worked for, the second they had a speaking of cutting and running, they did it, and they fucked the entire company. Every single one of us got fucked. They came into the building, and they fired 90% of the crews and all the buildings. And then the people that were left were expected to make up that other 90% that got fired, and the owners... They don't give two fucks. They just walked out with their clean million. And they just move on to the next facility.
You betcha. You betcha. The whole thing was just one giant scam. But the thing is like I said, the customer base drives it. Because then at the same token, let's say you show up at, like in California, they have these sessions, which are medical. And so everybody in there is supposed to have a medical card. So you're allowed to, trade, buy, sell, whatever. And, you're not supposed to buy and sell. They're supposed to, you give it to them and they give you back a donation or whatever.
Yeah, it's gifting it. People got around that shit for a while in our state. When it first started becoming legal, there was places that were like a veterans hall or a veterans club. And they would, you donate to them and they'd gift you cannabis. So they got through this legal thing where they weren't a dispensary and they weren't marketed or taxed as a dispensary, but they could get around the laws through the donating and gifting concept.
Yeah. They run the medical here similar to that. Well, let's say you show up to the sesh and everybody's selling this $40 mass-produced shit weed, and you show up with stuff you want 100 an ounce for, but you really pristinely took care of it. It's really quality, gorgeous product. You're going to have a hell of a time selling it. People are like, yeah, but I can get a whole ounce over here for 40.
And they're also going to say the brand names behind it, like, oh, but this one's cookies. Your brand doesn't fucking matter. This is garbage, but it has the cookies name on it, so go fuck yourself.
100%. Oh, the naming is so weird. And then in the extract business, it's gotten now to where it's all visual. Everything's visual, which is why the darkening that you mentioned of the cannabis, that's because everything has now got, in my house, we call it the tainted gelato. And so everybody, the industry turned very visual, which you don't get. The effects don't come from looking at it, guys. This isn't porn.
The weed looks pretty, but it doesn't. It smokes like shit. Just the concept of growing it in Rockwool, dude. You can put 3 weeds in front of me. Say one of them's growing hydro, one of them's growing Rockwool. I can always pick out that Rockwool one because it has no body and it tastes like shit. Like there's no like juiciness to it. It's just dry fucking herb garbage. Like most of the weed now, I remember back in the day, dude, it was like kinetic sand. You could like grab a piece, kind of stick it up, and it would stay as that pile. Now it's just fucking dust. But the nugs look pretty, right?
A lot of that also is the PGRs, because people don't like, around here they call it larfy. So they don't like larfy weed. They want it to be thick, solid nuggets. So they dump PGRs in their shit. And it really does fill out and make a solid, crystally looking nugget. But then you go to extract from it and there's no oil in that. And it doesn't get you where you want to go. It doesn't have the same effect that, like sour diesel, totally larfy. It's just big little airy nuggets. They're hard to trim, very leafy. Everybody's went to this, to these strains that will grow like a cattail because they all want sea of green. And so you can put 1,000 of these things in a grow bed and you can grow them very uniformly. And then the other thing that's just gross that the industry's pushing is these auto flowers, because then they will automatically kick into a budding cycle And this budding cycle is a very short budding cycle, and they can punch out grow after grow after grow, rather than like sour D. Sour D is not a quick growing plant. That thing is gonna take forever and forever to finish. All them good old sativas did.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. Dude, everything is rushed. Like, they do like 2 weeks now for dryouts, and that's it. Like, you get some wet shit all the time. Nobody flushes anymore. Like, so any product you get nowadays, none of it's fucking flushed. That's why you have black ash in almost everything. Like, it's just speeding up the process. Just, again, mass-produced fucking garbage, dude.
Mass-produced. And again, this is what the people want, because if you go to them with some pristine stuff that you produced, and you want some more money, because of course you got to live off your stuff too. And I didn't, this small farm didn't produce 400,000 pounds. It produced 100. And, while not wanting to be a millionaire, a guy needs to make a few bucks to live. And they don't want to pay the extra money for that. They will go over and they will buy up that mass produced shit like mad, because it's only $40 an ounce. And they love it. They love it.
Dude, it's just destroyed all of it, man. Like, from the beginning, man, I was like never pro legal cannabis. Like, yes, I'm totally okay with the whole aspect of people not being criminalized for doing anything involving cannabis. But on the flip side, I was never pro full legalization of it, because all it's done is fuck the industry. And all it does is it's messed up the product. Like I said, it's supposed to be a spiritual plant, but the spirit is gone from the plant now. If there is anything left, it's a remnant of what it used to be. And that happened within a 10-year period.
How could you put spirituality into 400,000 fucking pounds? How? Like, when you were talking about spirituality in your plants, that's because there was you had 30 plants, and you went around and they all had a name, and you knew exactly what kind of plant this was. And you fermented bananas, and you put nails in there to get it some iron, and you did all these crazy other weird things that took a lot of time. You can't when you're putting in 400,000 pounds. Like, you're just getting in there and trying to get them watered and get your daily chores done, and you're probably angry about doing it. This is the same idea as cooking. Like, if somebody that hates cooking and hates you and hates everything about it, their food's gonna be awful. But grandma's freaking food, that where she just loved you and spent all day, and yeah, it's probably got some hairs in it and maybe some cigarette ash from the cigarette she had dangling out her mouth, and some weird ingredients, but it tasted better than anything you ever had, because she actually loved it, and that was carrying on with that. You can't do that with mass produced, and like you were just talking about, when it was all small farms, each of these small farms had a couple helpers. Now that it's mass produced, that one farm has a couple helpers. And they have it down, and they have machinery and everything else to help them. So they only need to have a couple guys to do that work. So not only are they mass producing, but you have seriously truncated down the number of people doing it. It's not a bunch of hippies out loving their plants and looking at them daily and caressing them and talking to them. It's dudes cussing at each other and sweating and trying to get through a work day.
It's literally turned into just straight a farm industry, honestly. Like, that's how I feel when I'm working in it, dude. It just feels like I'm working on a fucking labor farm, Like,
it's 100% what it's turned into. If they could, you even look at the trimming machines and stuff, it's no different than when the combine or the cotton gin or whatever came along. All of a sudden, 10 years ago, trimmers were making $300 a pound. You're only paying $300, or you're only selling the whole pound for $300 now. Trimmers were making that back then. So absolutely, they got all these machines.
Trimmers just do touch up now. At least at my work, they run everything through the machine, and then they just kind of peek through the nugs. If there's something that looks like shit, they do a quick snip, and they keep going along their way.
Yeah, just cut the duck feet off.
Dude, even debucking, man. When I first started debucking, you were very gentle with the nugs. You didn't want to smash them, nothing. Now it's gotten to the point where everywhere you work, dude, you just grab the branch and slide your fucking hand down and rip all the nugs off. That's it. Done.
Have you ever seen the way they harvest in Amsterdam?
Yeah, where they put them in the fucking machine and it just pulls all the nugs off and chops up the actual branch.
Just rips it right off. Like, just as vicious. Like, they don't even give a shit about this plant one little bit. And they've been commercial forever. And yeah, we had to know that was what was going to happen to our stuff too, that nobody's going to care about it. You might, if you're lucky and you have like a niche market where you find somebody that cares about what their product and cares about quality and whatnot, you might get lucky with it. But mostly, again, and where's that market going to come from when people don't want to pay more than $30 and $40 for an ounce? Like,
the next step is packs, and that was always my thing, was that as soon as you started seeing joints come in at like a 20 cigarette pack, just like a fucking pack of cigarettes, that was when the industry was dead. And I don't know if you're seeing it in California, dude, but for the first time about 2 weeks ago, my girlfriend's sister's boyfriend, he was like, "Hey bro, you want to smoke a joint?" And he pulls out what I thought was a Marlboro pack, flips it open and says it's all joints. And I'm like, yep, that's the end. It's over.
That is the end. Philip Morris, whoever, going to own everything. You might have 2 or 3 brands, but 2 or 3 brands are going to fucking own everything. It's going to be absolute trash in that pack.
And then they're going to patent it, and it's going to be like Monsanto, where even if you wanted to grow it at home, you can't legally grow it because they'll swoop in real quick and say that you're doing something illegal.
Yeah. It's pathetic. But again, the thing is we ask for it. We drive that. Even something simple as like milk, where everybody talks about, how evil it is
They've
that they
demonized raw milk.
Well, but also the people want the convenience of milk. And milk's not a convenient substance. So like, I have my own milk cows. If I go milk my cow and I bring it right up, I strain it, put it in the fridge. In 4 or 5 days, that milk's starting to taste tangy. It's getting some funkiness to it. Because that's a live bacteria. It is immediately breaking down. And so the thing is then, as a society, well, we want the convenience of going to the store and getting milk when we want and having it sit there. So if I milk the cow and the milk sits for a day or two while I wait for it to get picked up by the carrier, now we've sat for 2 days. He takes it to the bottling processing facility. They process it, bottle it, put it on distribution cars. Let's say that happened in the first day, which this is not how it works. Now we're at 3 days. The distribution vehicle takes it around all the different grocery stores. We're now at 4 days. On the 5th day, it's hitting grocery store shelves. You're going to want it to sit in your fridge for a few days, and take a week to get it. Most people don't want to go get milk every single day, so they're buying, however much for the whole week or whatever. You want that milk to sit in your fridge for a while. If that was good raw milk, that milk was funky long before you ever used it. It's no good anymore. It's, You
see the same thing with oranges, man. Like orange juice that you get, they add another enzyme to it that actually brings back the orange color and the orange flavor, because that shit gets real fucking stagnant and gross. Then they start adding preservatives to it and coloration, and all of a sudden here's your orange juice that you think is so goddamn fresh. Dude, it's crazy. Even talking about the cannabis shit, dude, like the testing concept. People don't trust weed unless it's tested. But the only reason that it needs to be tested is because you've created a market where it needs to be tested. So when the little guy at home that cared about the plant was doing his weed, you never thought about testing it because the guy cared about it. Now, They've tricked people into thinking that you can't trust that guy at home because he's putting something bad in it. But what they're really doing is pointing the finger at exactly what they're doing. The only reason the weed needs to be tested is because they're the ones that are spraying shit on it. It's the same thing with like the fucking milk. They trick people into thinking that like, oh yeah, sake of convenience, you can only trust it if it comes from us because we make sure that it's safe for you. Even if you did want to go out every week and you want to go buy raw milk from your neighbor, you can't do that because you need to get it through us first, because it's not safe unless you get it through us first, because we have to do the process. But the only reason the process exists and that needs to be done is because you've isolated that market in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and then again, just shelf stability. People don't want old milk. They want shelf stable milk. I don't know what you want me to tell you at that point. Now it is going to be hard to digest and make you a little bit sick and not be the greatest thing for you. But you got some milk. you got some milk. I don't know what to tell you.
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. So let's hop right in. Well, I guess kind of starting to wrap up a little bit towards the end, man. And we'll definitely have to make sure that we come back around sooner rather than later, because I still feel like there's a million different directions we could go in. We didn't even really get too much into like the off-grid living and stuff. We just kind of had more of like a catch-up episode more than anything, man. So we'll definitely have to make sure that we plan something here soon to be able to get it more into exactly all the stuff you got going on behind the scenes. But I always like to wrap up the show, man, with some words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdom that you might want to bestow on the listeners today, man, what might it be?
The biggest thing, and this has been touched on in the whole show, is you got to do stuff for yourself. You've got, especially your food, your food. If you want the good food out in my garden, I have, if you look at my YouTube, Benjamin Balderson, I think now they're probably 12-foot tall tomato plants, and I probably have 100 of them, because we're going to can all the tomatoes and everything, whether it's spaghetti sauce or pizza sauce or whatever tomato type thing. We want all of our own peppers, having our own cows. If understand that I've never met a person that worked in the food industry that eats the food from the industry they worked in. Ever.
That's the typical idea with fast food, that you work at a fast food place and you never want to eat that place again.
And on the flip side, I love the food that comes from my house. It's amazing. And everybody that's ever eaten it's enjoyed it. But this means that you've got to do your own work. So it doesn't matter whether it's the conspiracy world, whether it's your food, whatever. This new push. I thought the age of gurus was over, but we're so firmly in the age of gurus where everybody just wants somebody else to give them the answer and give them the magic pill and give them this, that we're never going to get anywhere. It's just a fact. Until everybody decides to do the work themselves, you're not going to start living the life you want to live. Nobody's going to give it to you. You need to make it.
Dude, I was talking about this yesterday with all of the weight loss drugs and everything like that. It's like you're not doing the work, but you're getting the result. But in the after effect, half of doing the work isn't necessarily the end goal. It's the process of getting there in the way that it makes you feel in the process of getting there, that you feel like you have truly accomplished something. If you're just being able to inject yourself with something and you lose weight, you do not nearly get the same satisfaction as if you went out to the gym every single day, you did all of these things to get yourself to that point. They're also just taking away the ability for people to actually feel some sense of fulfillment. Everybody just wants the shortcut, and in turn of getting that shortcut, you don't get that fun journey along the way. As they've always said, man, life is about the journey, not the final destination. So why is it that we've lost that idea, that philosophy, when it comes to anything else in our lives?
Absolutely. Instant satisfaction. That's what we're all about. No spirituality, instant satisfaction, mass availability. We don't want only some people to have this available. We want everybody to have it, instant satisfaction. And that's just never going to bring you the good things in life. And so do your own work. That is, you want to have a cult understanding and really get to the philosophies that were, and most philosophies were alchemy based, then do alchemy.
Plain and simple, man. And even if you're going to do alchemy, don't get into philosophy. Like, be practical about it. Actually do it. I mean, there's work and learning, of course, but like, don't just do the learning. Like, make it practical within things. You know, like do the actual thing.
Ground it.
Exactly.
Ground it. It's easy enough to think that something's going to work out great, like solar, like having a solar powered house that's off grid, and it's great until it's 20 degrees out and your batteries all lose all their voltage and now you don't have power and you're on a generator anyways. Like, you've got to learn that you've got to ground your thoughts and ground your things, and then you end up being a more wise person, and then you can pick the best course.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just to even throw something else, even with that thought, even like the whole idea about these windmills, dude, you know, everybody thinks that's the end all be all. That's going to be a way that we save the environment. Half the thing of saving the environment is preserving these landscapes. And what happens when you put up these giant fucking windmills that go for miles and miles and miles, completely annihilates the entire landscape, because it's basically like putting up giant fucking power lines everywhere. Like, you're counteracting exactly what you're trying to do. Absolutely.
So, yep, start making sense, and that only happens when you do the work.
And if anybody wanted to come and check out your work, any of the stuff that you're doing, because I know that you said you're kind of coming back and you're a little bit of a transition and everything, where can everybody come and find the awesome stuff that you're doing on the internet, and what exactly can they find with all these different things that you're doing currently?
Well, the best place to go find the most stuff is going to be at alanmarcus.com. He's my partner and co-host, and he has his own website, so we just put the stuff up on his website because then it doesn't disappear. We're on the Deliberating Dog-Faced Dudes or Benjamin Balderson YouTube channel, and on Rumble, Deliberating Dog-Faced Dudes. And like I said, I'm just starting to do interviews. I just did a crow interview that's getting ready to drop here probably next month sometime. Just starting to do the interviews, but a lot of it's been that I've been doing the work, and that's where I get my insights from. So I've just been refilling. The cup was empty. I needed to refill it.
Oh, man. And we all get there at certain times, man. Like, people don't realize it behind the scenes, but there's a lot of times where I just need like a week or two off in between. And it's like a matter of like, I know that if I stop altogether, like a lot of people never come back from that. So I don't want to let myself do that. But yeah, you gotta take little resting breaks every once in a while to get your head straight, man. It's kind of like if you're always in the fucking trench, like you're going to have your mindset in the trench. Sometimes you just have to lift your head up for a minute to realize where you actually are for a second. And then you can take a breath and get back down in the trenches again.
Exactly. You just need a break. Yep. But it's been a great talking. I'm glad we got to catch up again. I'll have to have you on the Dog-Faced Dudes. We'll have to get you on over there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. I would absolutely love it. And it's definitely an honor, man, that coming back, you came on my show as one of the first ones. Like I said, it's been a minute since we've talked, so I didn't even know that you took a hiatus. So it's cool that this just happened to work out where it was one of your first shows back, too. So
Absolutely. Well, you have a good night, brother.
You too, man. If anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I am the most active on. Or you can also get a hold of me through the submission form, which is up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is by calling or texting the Bizarre Reality Hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description. And just like all of the other links, they are available down there and off of the link tree. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show's connected some dots in your own reality. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey. With a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality.